Hey friends, it's been a minute, but here I am back with a brand new, fresh tango banter. For this one, I sat down with my good friend Gregory, who is one of the few die-hard male followers on the tango circuit. So we sat down to chat about his experience as a man in the world of tango and what it means for him to follow in the context of the Milonga or a festival, and in general, what following and leading reveal about tango when you have this experience of dancing both roles. It was an awesome conversation with just the right amount of awkward in the best possible way. So I think you'll really enjoy it. And before we jump in, I wanted to let you know I will be in Buenos Aires November 12th through December 5th. So if you are there, let me know. You can send me a message on social at IMSO Tango, IMSO Tango. And also in January of 2026, I will be teaching, DJing, and hosting a live tango banter inspired event at the Queen City Tango Marathon. You want to check this out. I think it's going to be an amazing way to start the year. And I'll be posting more details about the live event that I will be hosting and how you can actually participate in it. So those links are in the show notes. Make sure you check it out. Now, without further ado, let's jump in to this banter with Gregory. An official welcome to you, Gregory, onto the Tango Banter podcast. It's
nice to be here.
It's a real treat. It's a real treat.
Thank
We've
you.
known each other for quite some time. I was trying to think of when we actually met. I feel like you came into my life when I was new to LA and I was still trying to find my footing, and you sort of burst on the scene unannounced, and then there you were, and I don't remember anything after that. It was like before Gregory and then after Gregory.
Amazing.
And
I didn't know I had
it's
such
kind
a
of
presence
fun.
or a reputation.
You really do. You really do. In fact, I announced that I was interviewing you, and I've been talking to people and saying like that I was going to have you on the podcast. And a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, that's right, Gregory. Yeah. Everybody had like a really nice expression on their face when they thought about you.
Wow.
And
okay.
and that's like the vibe that precedes you. So I think it's pretty cool to banter with you, because I'm sure a lot of dancers are curious about what makes you you.
Oh, boy.
So the reason that we're having this banter is because you, Gregory, are one of the few diehard followers on the tango circuit. And as a male follower, you seem to consistently be, representing that evolution, I would say, in the tango scene. There's been more and more men following recently, but you're like the OG. You've been following before the trends, it seems.
Before it was cool.
Before it's cool.
And by
Except that it
diehard, you mean
started.
that in like every Milonga, I'll ask my partner, do you lead?
So my first question is, what got you into following? What was the desire there? And when did this happen? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so I started tango at UC Berkeley when I was a student there. And I guess it was kind of lucky. I didn't have to like make a choice because our instructor and the organizers were very like pro structuring the class in a just try both roles. So I originally checked out the class with my then roommate, who was also a man. And like we worked together quite a bit because it was comfortable and like we knew each other, right, before we made friends in the actual class. But to me, it was a lot like, well, just understanding the technique involved in the entire dance. I definitely saw myself as a leader in the sense that like maybe outside of the lessons, outside of the practicing, I would do more leading, but I was always happy to try following. So like at the very inception, I didn't have this categorization of like men lead and women follow, but it's true
How
that
lucky. How lucky.
Yeah,
that
I
you didn't
agree.
have that.
Totally. I mean, also I went to
Do you think
Berkeley
that's
and maybe
because
that
of
vibe.
like that vibe I was going to ask? Is it because of the more of that
Probably.
like pioneering vibe of the college campus where things are a little bit more progressive?
Yeah, that's true. University certainly, and also like Berkeley is probably known for that stereotype of more counterculture gender norms. So I don't know how much of it was those influences, and I would like to think that even if I didn't have exposure to following that early, I as a person am not like men must have this role and women must have this role. Who knows what would have happened if that weren't the case, but I am lucky to have been in that environment.
Tango is pretty known for its machismo culture. And so I'm curious, did you at any point in your early days, did you get in touch with that? Like, were you aware of the more like the traditional tango roles? Like, have you gone to Buenos Aires and like experienced that whole like men and women are very defined? Is that something that was part of your experience at all?
That's a good question. I mean, first I would say that like how much of what we experience in tango is coded that way versus Argentinian culture. Like maybe it's hard to separate that, but I don't know how much of the machismo comes into our experience of tango. One thing also I acknowledge is that our tango is a bit more like hobby, whereas in Argentina it's a bit more integrated into culture. Like one thing I remember is that in Argentina you would go out to like a Milonga, but it's also just a restaurant. People go there without expectation to dance. They just sit and eat and watch dancing. So then that machismo maybe is baked more into tango because it's also in that culture.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I experienced that here in tango more than just like in society, in American society, right? So maybe in some demographics or in some parts of the country, it's more or less, but it's not as prominent to me.
I'm kind of getting the sense that you are just particularly open-minded and you don't necessarily have the same insecurities or fears around the, I guess, machismo parts of tango. And I'm kind of curious about that because I think you probably take it for granted. But I know I've talked to a lot of men who have a lot of fear around following because it might mean something about their masculinity or
Or their sexuality.
or their sexuality. And, I'm kind of getting the sense that somehow you lucked out in your upbringing, worldview, where you live. I don't know the combination of things that made you so easy with this idea, but I'm curious, what do you think about that when, for you, it seems like such a lighthearted thing to say like, oh, I'll just follow because that's interesting to me versus for other guys, it's like, no, one guy I frequently mentioned this, that, we were at a Milonga and we're walking back in and, my husband made a comment to a guy walking in with him. It was like, oh, this song is so good. Do you want to dance? And this guy laughed really nervous, this very nervous laugh. And he's like, oh, gay porn. I tried it. It's not my thing. Like it was so over the top. Like that's what it meant to him, that following and dancing with a man is
Right.
equivalent to that. So I'm curious what your
Or if
perception
not
is.
equivalent, that he like it was so easy for him to grab as an analogy
Yeah.
that it's close enough. Yeah, it's interesting that you say upbringing because I also am from an immigrant family from the Soviet Union, and like my dad was super stereotypical, like machismo and gender roles and you know, sexual orientation, like discomfort, whatever. And I maybe like rebelled against that in part, but also I'm very lucky to have a group of very close male friends, and we are intimate with each other. So like we hug, and we're not afraid of touching in general and saying I love you. And like these are friends I've now had, you know, since high school, or the longest one I've had is since middle school. So that closeness probably has something to do with it. The fact that we're intimate with each other has probably something to do with it. And it's like not really a question of sexuality. It's just, you know, I don't know. I love these people and I express my love. And so that probably helped break that barrier of seeing following as any, or maybe not following, but dancing with a man, right? Those in fact are like two different conversations we could have. Like I follow, but I also can follow a woman, which is one thing. And I can also dance with a man and lead or follow. So
Yeah, I'm glad you're
it's like
pointing
so
that out.
broad.
Yeah, I'm glad you're pointing that out because I was reading through the questions that I sent you. I was suddenly aware like that there are two different sides to this experience for men, whether it's just asking a woman leader to lead them, which is one thing. Like that's itself is significant. Whenever I've danced with like a long-term milonguero who's very traditional, like super by the book, machismo and everything. And in the middle of the tanda, they're like, okay, can you lead me for a song? And just
Oh, nice.
like that's both, sometimes that feels very complimentary, obviously, but sometimes it's almost like, comes off as entitled in a set for a moment, like the fact that they're just gonna like suddenly switch like that, and they're just gonna expect that I would want to switch. So it depends on the context. So that's one realm, but then you dancing as a follower with a man has this whole other layer of mystery or perhaps emotionality. I don't know. Do you find that the tango that you experience dancing as a follower with a man is different in some specific way than when you follow a woman?
As I'm unpacking it in real time, let me first say that I think following for me is different than leading. I've told people before who have asked me, my best experience following and my best experience leading are not like above or below each other. They're like different things, right? It's like you have a favorite ice cream and you also have a favorite pizza, and your favorite pizza is not better than your favorite ice cream because they're different. And it's not a great analogy,
You can't
but
choose between the two.
right, exactly. I think there are different expectations, at least for me. I sometimes feel less pressure dancing with a man. Like it's a little more casual is not the best word, but I feel less like I have to perform a certain way.
That's very interesting because you're not the first person to say that, and it's not something I've thought about. I'm really curious about why that would be.
I've heard analogous things when talking to women about leading, dancing with women, that there's something that's mentally different. There's like less of a pressure. You know, our society does have like a particular gender dynamic encoded into it. So
Yeah,
there's maybe some of that.
I wonder when I ask that for myself, like following a woman versus following a man is dramatically different for me. Definitely leading and following are different for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think I love that we stop and acknowledge that, because for a lot of dancers who start the opposite role, a lot of times it's like, oh, it's less or more than. Like, I like following more than I like leading, or I like
Or
leading
you'll
more
always
than
hear
I
like,
like following.
which one is harder, right? That's like such a
Which one
common
is harder?
conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a common conversation, which if I were to answer it, I mean, they're both hard in such a specific way, but following, a lot of times I'm like, following is actually harder because it's, to me, it's more, it's deceptive. It's deceptive. It's like, it looks like it's easy, but there's actually so much more technique there that you might not realize that you're supposed to have, but there's no way that for you to know that you have to have that technique until like you're of that level that you get there. That's how it seems to me. But
the thing to me that's always that gives context to that question is that when I often ask, and in this case it'll be mostly a woman who I am leading, if she leads, and if she does, if she's willing to lead me in a milonga, there's always that like undercurrent of kind of like fear and intimidation of dancing at the milonga, which I'm not trying to take a position that leading is harder than following, but like there's a mental game to leading, right? It's the mental game that's the hard part. Yeah. It's the negotiating the space, having to navigate, having to. How are you going to control your partner? Control, but like you know.
Right. No, it's true. That part is the harder part for sure, because as a follower, you can just close your eyes and you can somewhere else, you know. But so when I think about following in particular, what I experience when I follow women versus what I experience when I follow men is different. And the way I would describe it, I think I could use the word safety when I talk about women, dancing with women, partially because I don't feel that sexual charge and intrigue that's built into the dance based on my heterosexual whatever nature, you know? So it's like anytime I dance with a man, it can be a very elderly man who's like a grandpa, but there's still that feeling of like, I'm in a man's arms. This is a man and I'm a woman. And there's that layer there of possible attraction, possible chemistry, possible repulsion. There's that dynamic. But when I dance with a woman, it's just not there because it's not something I've been entrained into. Like if I were attracted to women, maybe that would also be part of my conversation.
So I was curious about
follower.
Whether like sexual orientation will color that differently.
So I'm curious for you, like when you say following men is safer than following women, and it's like the stakes are higher for women because it's like the mental game, like maybe you feel like you need to somehow perform because they're better followers than you and you have to like measure up in some way. Is that what's scary? Or
this is really complex. I was going to say like, I wonder if it's that like I care more about what the women think about how I follow, and whether that has to do with the fact that like at a milonga, my relationship with women is like more consequential to my experience, whereas with a man it's like I don't care if they think I'm not a good follower because they're not going to dance with me anyway unless like I bring that that's so I don't know, I'm kind of drawing grasping a little bit, but
we're not going to figure it out.
What I would say is like you said safety in response to my experience as well, drawing from your experience. I wouldn't have thought of it as safety per se, at least not in the way that I think of that word, but also because to me it brings about like the context that like women also have to care about their safety, like physically in tango as well, and in society, right? Like if you're going to dance with a man, there's maybe like a part of you also that's like, is this going to be in an inappropriate situation? Am I going to have to talk to the organizer?
Right.
Am I going to, right?
Yeah.
And I also just don't have that in general with men or women.
That is a privilege that you get to experience.
Totally.
That's true.
Totally. Yeah.
Have
so
you
for
ever,
that
I
reason,
mean,
I don't
yeah,
know
have
about-
you ever, as a man in tango, have you ever experienced any kind of like inappropriate behavior passing at you that would be like alarming to you? I don't think you have. That would be my guess if I were to like talk about you and be like, would I think Gregory? I'm like, no, nobody's going to mess with you. That would be my idea. But is that true?
I have experienced things and have talked with other men about followers who, like, it feels like they will presume more about how I want to be dancing. So it's not, it doesn't feel like they're violating me, but they're like
Assuming.
inviting a context or assuming a context that I'm like not offering. And it's different, I think, because I don't feel a physical threat, but it is awkward and slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, it's like a privilege of like, I'm also not worried about being physically assaulted because of something, but it is being put in like a situation where I'm like, I didn't consent to this in some sense.
It's a good
which is
reminder.
Hard to, yeah.
It's a good and humbling reminder to know that there are women as well who misbehave in some way and assume things and make men uncomfortable. It's true.
I've had a leg rubbed up against me in a way that was like, that feels like it wasn't called for.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of men who are like, and you minded what?
Right. Totally. And I think maybe like my teenage self might have responded the same way. You know what I mean?
Yes, but there is a maturity that comes, I guess, with time. You learn your lessons. In terms of your following at a Milonga versus following like at a festival versus following at a practica, do you feel that it's harder to navigate certain like social dynamics of particular events when it comes to being a male follower? Like, do you ever go into a Milonga and feel like, no, I'm not going to follow. Like, I don't feel secure enough to follow or something.
Oh, interesting.
Does that ever happen?
No. And I was interpreting your question differently, but this is an interesting thing you brought up, like that I don't feel like the space is safe for me to follow.
Yeah, like, because
people won't receive that well.
I know, like, as a female leader, I know there are spaces that I'll walk in where it will not be welcome for me to lead, that it would be some sort of like a statement. There's still places like that, I can tell. So I don't know. I didn't know if that translated for you. Like, do you ever feel uncomfortable following as a man based on the culture of the event? Or
so I've never been to an encuentro, so I only know what I'm talking about based on how other people describe it. If I went to an encuentro, it seems like that would be the closest environment to where I would feel that. But I think because of the fact that I live in the Bay Area, and I'm very privileged for that, I can choose my milongas from like so many different kind of, vibes. But also just because it's the Bay Area, I feel like people wouldn't harass me for that anyway. As opposed to if I lived somewhere where that kind of gender role was more stringent. And then going to marathons, I feel like the kind of people that go, at least to the marathons I go to, are, if anything, more likely to be role switching, at least these days. When I went to Buenos Aires last, I was not I would say, competent enough follower to try to follow at a Milonga. But if I went now and I went to like, El Beso or Salon Conning or whatever, I probably wouldn't, unless I had a friend there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ask someone random, let's say, right? I wouldn't try to cabaceo a random person to do that. But I think I would be comfortable following if I knew who I was dancing with. So just the environment itself wouldn't intimidate me, but I wouldn't be as confident to ask someone that I didn't know.
I think we have this perception that men following is just such a radical idea for some reason, even though tango started that way. Men
Yeah, right. That's the story everyone tells.
But somehow there's so much fear around it still, and there's this perception that maybe it's so rare. But I think that we're actually seeing more of that acceptance, perhaps, just judging by how comfortable you are with the idea of like going to lots of different festivals and dancing as a follower.
Yeah. Do you think it's different than when women leading began to be more popular? And I'm curious, like rewind back, I don't know, 8 years or 5 years, whatever. There was probably also a stigma of women leading and when it was less prominent.
Yes. I do remember. I definitely felt that very clearly. And when I was in Buenos Aires, and it was 2015, 2016, and I saw a male couple dancing at a Milonga, and they were sort of prominent up and coming dancers. They were performing a lot. It was very dramatic to me to see a male couple as a duo. Like that was like stood out to me as like, oh, that's different. Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to think what I thought about women. I think it was even more rare. I think I felt that it was even more rare to think of women leaders at the time. I just didn't see women leading in a very powerful way. I knew women who could lead, but I didn't see that represented on the social dance floor at all. So I'm actually realizing this now as I'm talking that, for a while it was more strange for even women to lead each other than it was men to lead each other in my conception of it.
Interesting.
But now I think men are complaining. That's what I've been kind of getting. There's been complaints that there's an imbalance now, that men feel that there are too many women leaders who are scooping up the available followers, and that there's competition. And it's sweet on the one hand. I'm like, oh, that's so cute. You think that's unfair. On the other hand, I think it's serving as a catalyst for a lot of men to actually get into following and actually dip their toe into this other world, which is good, because for some of them it's like a necessary medicine. Like one thing, I'm curious if you can comment on this, but when I think about the difference between leading and following is such a receptive state of the dance. Like you really, the value of a really good follower in tango, as I think of it, is the total presence and ability to shift with what the leader has in mind, right? Like that total giving away of your own agenda. And whenever I allow myself to be in that state, it's very nourishing. It feels very calming. It feels peaceful. It feels, I don't know, relaxing in all these ways. You kind of go into a space. And it feels like if I never had that experience, if I only led, I'd be missing out a lot. So the leading and the following, they sort of give me, I guess, a stimulation of different sides of myself in a way that allows me to feel myself in a bigger way. Do you sense that's something that you enjoy, or do you experience that as a follower?
Yeah, as you were talking, two things came into my mind, and the I think I've heard this said, like something like make the follower feel beautiful. And I do think I appreciate the fact that when I'm dancing with a leader who I'm synchronized with, like we are compatible in musicality, technique, whatever, like me following their lead does make me feel beautiful, for lack of a better word. Like, and maybe it's okay to use that word. You were mentioning earlier, like, do I have insecurities? Like, how do I feel about being called beautiful?
But that's such an interesting idea, right? Like,
yeah,
that just by following you experience that, but it's not something you would claim necessarily so readily for yourself as a man.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because I feel like I can do things as a follower that make me move my body in ways that I don't as a leader, or maybe I don't in life. And maybe those things are coded with more feminine stereotypes, but everyone has like masculine and feminine elements about them. So it is nice to be able to feel those. In contrast to leading, which is more, leading well feels validating for me, that like I am proposing something, and if the follow matches what I've proposed, then it feels like I have done well. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, I guess in following, you don't really know what the leader wants, which is kind of like what your vibe should be, in my opinion. Don't try to figure out what the leader wants, just try to follow genuinely. Like, where does your body feel like it naturally wants to go? And it's the leader's job to like figure out how to adapt. But for leading, like, I have an intention. And if it's like something where I'm like the artist, for example, if I'm like sketching a painting or a drawing or whatever, and it looks the way that I want it to look, like I feel it's like, wow, I did that. I don't know.
No, I know what you mean. It's like this interesting feeling of satisfaction of like, oh, I made that happen. Like this came from my body.
Right.
It's very satisfying.
And I appreciate that I can express my musicality as a leader. Like, if you're dancing on your own, it's fine, right? You can dance on your own and you can trip over yourself, and it doesn't matter. You have like yourself to be responsible for. But if I am dancing with a partner who's dependent on interpreting what I want as musicality, and I get that musicality, it's like, it's like,
you have it for real.
Rewarding.
You're not just imagining it. You don't just think you have it. You actually have it.
Yes, that's a great way to frame it. Yes.
And I think with tango in particular, with leading tango, there is this little hump, especially at the beginning when I remember first leading my first movements. And it feels like sorcery when you finally feel this moment where something you do, the follower follows. It's like your mind is blown when that happens for the first time. You're like, I can't believe that I just did that. And it just continues to grow with time. And even though I think the dance gets very complex, or we learn a lot of figures, we take a lot of things for granted, at the heart of it is still, as a leader, this satisfaction when it really syncs up with what you have in mind. It never gets old. That feeling never gets old.
The sorcery you're talking about, I remember exactly the first time I experienced it. The class I was in, it was probably like my year 2 or something like that, dancing, or earlier. And we were just working on projection. Just like hug your partner and just send their leg back, side. And it was just like, this is incredible. This is phenomenal. I have no idea how I'm doing this, but it's happening. And it's just like, wow.
I love how you said you were like dancing for 2 years and you're working on a leg projection. That just shows this dance, like how complex it is, right? Like after 2 years, your mind is blown by the fact that you're projecting your follower's leg. That's all it
How
takes.
many times have you relearned walking? It's just
Oh
like
my God. It's
mental.
crazy. I'm still learning. It's still a work in progress. But that's the truth about anything, right? Anything you go into, it's always the basics. We end up making it much more complex. Speaking of the basics, and when it comes to like the basics of getting the dances as a follower, I'm curious what your strategies are, because
Yes.
the etiquette in tango makes it kind of tough. I know for myself as a woman who leads and follows, I know that it confuses the hell out of people because they don't know which role I want to be dancing or how to cabaceo me. But also, I just find I have to cabaceo in a different way in general to be more clear to my potential partners that I want to be dancing with them, because they're just not reading my cues very easily. I can't imagine that it's much easier for you. I mean, I would be guessing it would be even harder for you to get dances as a follower, as a male follower, but what is it really like? What's your strategy?
I'm very glad you touched on this. So if I'm dancing with women, there are very, very few women who will proactively offer to lead. I think you're one of them. I can think of a handful of others. I mean, my partner, of course, but that's kind of cheating. We know each other and are comfortable dancing with each other. If she wants to lead, she knows how to offer that to me.
So lucky.
Right. But so with women, I don't know that I have ever cabaceoed someone coding my cabaceo to follow. Most of the time, if I'm cabaceing a woman, I am expecting the default to be that I lead, or at least that I start leading. And then if it's someone that but it doesn't matter if I know them or not, I will ask, like, do you lead? And then, would you like to lead? And if I know that they're a regular leader, then I might change how that is. But it's basically that same format with women. With men, it's like almost impossible to cabaceo another man.
Right.
And I've talked to other men about this. And in practicas, you like have your friends. And so maybe they know to look out for you. But you're still like, it's going to be like at a practica, right? I have gotten to the point where I am much more comfortable walking to a man and talking them into it.
The good old cabaceo.
And it's not something, right? but it's different. It's actually more agendaed than that. It's not that I'm hoping that like it'll be implied because we're chatting. I'm literally like, hey, can I cabaceo you sometime? Or even like, hey, would you be up for dancing together this Milonga? And I'm trying not to make it obligatory, but I'm also like, I don't know, it's a little bit meta where I'm like, okay, there's this man and women power dynamic, and I feel like I never want to obligate a woman to dance with me, but I kind of don't care about obligating a man. Because I feel like there's less of that, like,
you feel like they're going to be straight with you, like they'll be.
Yeah, and if I make a man uncomfortable, maybe I don't care as much. Or that like they can deal with that discomfort and have to tell me no. You know what I mean? Like, force you to tell me no. But I also try to be like tactful about it. Like I said earlier, I might say, you know, can I cabaceo you later, or would you like to dance at this Milonga? I'm not just going to be like, hey, you want to dance now?
Give them a way out.
I might. Yeah.
I think that's it's a great adaptation, and it's great to hear in real time someone's strategy of just making it work, because I'm sure the cabaceo police would tell you that you can't do that. It's supposed to be cabaceo. You're supposed to follow the rules.
Yep.
But in practice, in the practical world, like the rules are there to serve you. And if they're not serving you, you have to do something so that you can get your dance on. So it makes sense that you...
We can tangent on this so much, but I have very strong opinions about how we teach beginners, how we expose beginners to the idea of cabaceo and what like are and are not social norms and etiquettes. Because the reality is that we're trying to do like a do as I say, not as I do. Mm-hmm. Because you will see, okay, I'm not going to say half the time, but like such a substantial part of the time, dances will occur between people who are just hanging out and chatting.
Absolutely.
And also dances will occur between people who already have social rapport. So I get that we're like trying to have this system and this society, but I don't want to be disingenuous and like stress people out unduly. Like if you ask someone, it's not the end of the world, but you should be willing to accept a no. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the thing. I just recently got a message from a dancer from South Africa, actually, who shared a story with me that he was coming from ballroom and he had no understanding of the etiquette. And he went to Buenos Aires to a Milonga and he went up to 7 women asking them to dance and they all said no. And the 7th one took pity on him and went outside and actually explained the etiquette, which was hilarious to me.
But at least you did that.
And I definitely feel he actually thought it was me, maybe. Like he messaged me saying, maybe you're that 7th lady and I just want to thank you that you did that. But I was like, no, that wasn't me. But I love that happened. Because I think that illustrates to an extreme level the hostility that people can experience. And God bless him for sticking out the 7 no's that he got and he's still dancing tango. But for a lot of people, they hear 1 no and they're out. But I really love your perspective on cabaceo in your own context and just figuring out how to make it work. And no matter what strategy you come up with in terms of looking for dances at a milonga, I keep coming back to this. What works is human connection. That's why chatting with someone for a few minutes over a snack bar always helps, right? And the more we can like focus on that, it eliminates a lot of the other difficulties, I think. I want to wrap up our banter, which I've enjoyed so much, and I'm really looking forward to the second installment of this because I think we're just scratching the surface. I imagine that people listening to this episode, there's probably a lot of men who maybe are curious about following. They've been thinking about it, but they just kind of, they don't really know where to start. They're nervous. What would be your advice? What would be your piece of wisdom that you might impart to someone who really wants to try it but doesn't really know how to even start going that direction?
I would say that your best bet to get comfortable with it, ironically, is to dance with your guy friends. You have a friend, that feels like it's already lowered the barrier, like the pressure of, interacting with another human. I think that the pressure of dancing man to man is lower than man to woman, especially like in a situation where I've experienced this. I can't speak for anyone else. I'm way more likely to give feedback to a man than I am to a woman. And I'm sure that's coded with a lot of different reasons and things. But this is also like when I mentioned earlier that like I feel like there's less pressure dancing with a man. I think it relates to that. Whether it's because like I don't want to be seen as like mansplaining to a woman, or we have like different perspectives and we're going to receive information differently, whatever it may be. But I'm just way more free about like if I'm dancing with a man, leader or follower, I'm going to be like, hey, that thing you did was weird. Like, what's going on with that?
You can be more direct.
It's important to communicate well, regardless of the gender, but I think that maybe there's just more social grace in some way. So I would say that if you can have like a I'm not going to say it's your best friend, but like a social relationship where you're comfortable with another man and you're a man, just try switching with each other. Even if it's not like, I need to follow, just feel it. You know what I mean? Have another person like give you intention and you receive that intention. It's just so much about like the frame of mind is so different, and just experiencing that is very important.
That's great.
I hope that's useful.
No, I think that's really insightful, and it kind of led me to a follow-up question, which I love how it circles back to what you were talking about at the beginning when I asked you what makes you so special that you are just so comfortable with this whole following thing. And you referenced your friendship with your guy friends, which I do feel like is kind of a rare thing in our culture these days, to witness men having close relationships with other men to the level that there's a lot of physical intimacy and there's a lot of like that care and sharing of love. What do you think is a way for men to find that, cultivate that? Like, from someone who has this, you've had this for such a long time, you probably don't even think about it. It's like you take it for granted. But I know that there's a lot of men out there who are just such loners. They don't even have a concept of having close friends. Because I even think about like COVID and what COVID has done to our understanding of like relationships. I recently heard that a lot of young people who grew up playing video games and developing relationships with people through video games, that they actually have long-lasting best friends that they've never met, that they only know through the games, you know?
Because you mentioned the video games, it brought up an episode in my mind, which I think is like will represent a more broad point, but like I play Magic the Gathering, which we don't need details about that, but like you go to a card shop and there's like a tournament, like a Friday night or whatever, and you spend like 3 to 4 hours, and the demographics there tend to be mostly male. It's nice to see women coming out, but that's just the way that it is. And I was playing with this one guy I had never met, and we were just having such a good time. He was my opponent in the game, but we were just having such a good time. At the end of our match, he's like, "Hey, I'm putting together a Dungeons and Dragons group. Do you want to participate?" And I was in that campaign with 4 guys I never knew, because I played this one game with this one guy and we just hit it off for 2 years. Like every other week I played Dungeons and Dragons with him for a few hours. And so like more broadly, what I was going to get at is just like, you need an activity that like forces you to interact with people, but it isn't about the interacting with people. Any like social lubrication where you can be occupied with something that distracts you from the fact that you're socializing with someone else. And I think the pressure is just way lower there. It's harder to go to a party where you're like, the party is about hanging out, right? Because then you're like, what do I talk about? Do these people like the same things that I like? I don't know them. We have to build up rapport. No. You go do like ice fishing or video games or playing Magic or whatever, ping pong. And you're doing that thing and you're just making friends.
What an awesome piece of advice. And I love the phrase social lubricant. I just feel like for any guy that would just really make that metaphor makes a lot of sense, that you need to have a social lubricant. Like, that's just simple. Yeah. It just makes things easier. And I would actually, I
wish I could claim that I came up with it.
You know, on this podcast you can. But I do totally feel like that insight that for men specifically, it's important that it's not, the focus is not about connecting, versus for women, it might be actually very attractive. Like for women, you advertise something like, "Oh, come connect. Let's connect with each other." I'm like, yeah, sign me up. But like, I can imagine for men, it's like, oh my God, no way.
Yeah.
So that's very
Yeah, I
insightful.
get that.
I'm grateful we went there.
There's a part of me often that wants to reject like societal expectations and like norms and traditions. Like, for example, I have no qualms about leading and following for men or women, any sexual orientation. But it does feel like when you talk about those kinds of things, you know, women are more attracted to something that says come and connect and men aren't. It's like, well, okay, just play to the strengths of people.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, people still want to connect anyway. And if it's a
Right.
stereotype, it's a stereotype. Sometimes they're okay.
Yeah.
Even though I don't want to be pigeonholed.
I can tell you don't want to be pigeonholed, and I feel the same way. But I think what you're pointing out is that we all have very natural draw. We actually are intuitively very drawn to connection. Like we all have the equipment inside of ourselves that draws us to other people. It's just we go about it in a very different way. And I think it's just good to be aware of that as we set up all these rules. So when it comes to tango, I think our conversation really shows how, there's all these rules that exist to help the thing run better, but then we change, men change, women change, roles change, and things have to shift in response to that. So beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.